If you're a serious UPSC aspirant, there's one year you absolutely need to have on your radar for science and tech, economy, and environment, and that year is 2026. It's being flagged as a major turning point for India's industrial strategy. Today, we're going to break down the entire world of biomanufacturing and biomaterials, a topic that sits right at the intersection of GS Paper 3 and your prelims current affairs.
So let's get right into it. Why 2026? Well, it's not some random date pulled out of a hat. It's the target for some really big projects to go live, signaling a huge pivot in our industry. What we're seeing is a massive, policy-driven move towards a circular bioeconomy, and our job today is to decode what that actually means, and more importantly, how you can use this knowledge to write some seriously high-scoring answers.
This really is the core question, isn't it? What's the science, the policy, and the big picture strategy all working together here? And how do you, as an aspirant, break all of this down for the exam? We're going to tackle this head-on. In fact, we've structured this entire explainer to mirror a model mains answer, giving you a ready-made framework to use.
Okay, so here's our game plan. We'll start with why this is in the news right now. That's the 2026 inflection point. Then, we'll build a solid foundation with the core concepts. After that, we'll look at the policy that's driving everything, analyze the real-world impact, face the challenges, and finally, wrap up with a roadmap for the future. Super logical, super clear.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the 2026 inflection point. We need to understand why this is such a hot topic for your current affairs prep right now.
So what's the big deal about early 2026? Well, the headline news is that India's first-ever industrial-scale bioplastics plant is set to come online. The key player here is Balrampur Chini Mills. Now, these are the details you'll want to jot down for prelims. We're talking a capacity of 75,000 tons a year. That's huge. The investment? Around 2,000 crore rupees. The tech is coming from Switzerland, and the raw material, this is key, is our own sugarcane. This is a massive leap for Made in India.
And you have to see this in the global context, right? This isn't happening in a vacuum. By 2026, the EU will be rolling out its own Biotech Act to become more self-sufficient. At the same time, China is officially calling biomanufacturing a future industry in its next 5-year plan. So for India, this isn't just a nice-to-have, it's a strategic necessity. It's about making sure we aren't left behind and dependent on imports in a sector that's about to explode.
Okay, now that we have the context, let's build our foundation. Section 2 is all about decoding the core science. You absolutely need this for a solid mains answer.
Okay, first things first, let's get a crisp, exam-ready definition down. So what is a biomaterial? Simply put, it's any substance, natural or man-made, that's designed to interact with a biological system. And here's the golden keyword you have to remember: biocompatibility. It just means the material does its job without causing the body to freak out and reject it.
So what do these things actually do? You can think of it in 3 main ways. First, they can replace something broken, like a new hip joint. Second, they can augment or help something out, like stitches that hold your skin together while it heals. And the third, which is really next-level stuff, is to repair. This is where the material actively helps your body regenerate itself, like a scaffold that helps new bone grow.
So where do we get these materials from? Well, they fall into 2 big buckets. On one hand, you have natural biomaterials. These come from plants or animals. Think collagen or cellulose. The big plus? They're usually super compatible with our bodies. The downside? They're not always the strongest. On the other hand, you have synthetic ones, made in a lab, like PLA or titanium. These are strong and predictable, which is great, but sometimes they don't talk to the body as well as the natural ones do.
Okay, pay close attention here, because this is a huge distinction and a favorite for exam questions. It's all about how the material interacts with your body. Some materials are bio-inert. Think of them as silent guests. They're designed to be ignored. A titanium implant is a perfect example. The body just builds a little wall of fibrous capsule around it and leaves it alone. But then you have bioactive materials. These guys are designed to get involved. They actually form a chemical bond with your tissue. The classic example is hydroxyapatite, which literally fuses with bone, a process called osseointegration. All right, quick brain check. Let's see if that's stuck. We've got 3 types of bioceramics on the screen: bioinert, bioactive, and bioresorbable. Go on, match them up. Got it? Bioinert is the one the body ignores. Bioactive is the one that bonds with bone, and bioresorbable? That's the one that slowly dissolves as new tissue grows in its place. Getting this right is non-negotiable. Okay, so we've got the science down. Now let's shift gears to the policy side of things in Section 3. What's the government framework that's really lighting a fire under this whole revolution?
The main driver here is something called the BioE3 Policy. The E3 stands for Economy, Environment, and Employment. And its goal is, well, it's ambitious. Just look at that number. The aim is to take India's bioeconomy from about $130 billion today to a massive $300 billion by 2030. That's more than doubling it in just a few years. This is the official target that's pushing everything forward.
So how are we going to get there? The policy is built on these 6 pillars. And you can see it's not just about bioplastics. We're talking about everything from bio-based chemicals and smart proteins to next-gen medicines, climate-proof farming, and even space biotech. This list right here, this is a perfect framework for your mains answer when you're asked about the scope of the policy.
Okay, let's just pause here for a second. The policy explicitly talks about creating jobs in Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities, right? Building these plants near farms. So stop and think, how does this connect to the rest of your syllabus? Can you link it to inclusive growth in GS Paper 3? Or maybe decentralized development in GS 2? It's making these connections that will really make your answers stand out.
Right, that brings us to the real meat of it in Section 4. Let's dig into the impact. How is this biorevolution going to affect our economy, our environment, and our society?
Economically, the potential is just massive. This chart says it all. The rest of the world, they're growing at about 10 to 12% a year. But India, our projected growth rate is nearly 20%. This isn't just about keeping up. This is about leading the pack.
And here's why that growth is so critical. Right now, we import 70 to 80% of our medical devices and special materials. Think about that. That's a huge vulnerability. So making this stuff here in India isn't just an economic goal. It's a core part of Atmanirbhar Bharat. It's about our health security.
Need a way to remember what circular bioeconomy means? Think of it as waste-to-wealth alchemy. And here's a brilliant real-world example, a startup called Fool.co. What do they take as their input? Discarded flowers from temples, basically waste. What do? They use a special fungus to process it. And the output? Something they call fleather, a bio-leather. Taking waste and turning it into something valuable. That's the circular bioeconomy in a nutshell.
Of course, no Mon's answer is complete without a critical perspective. It's not all smooth sailing. So, in Section 5, let's talk about the challenges. I like to think of them as the 3 B's: body, bureaucracy, and budgets.
First up, the body. Our bodies are smart, and they don't like foreign objects. The moment you implant something, it kicks off what's called the foreign body response. It's a whole chain reaction. Within seconds, proteins latch onto the surface. Then comes inflammation. And if it keeps going, the body eventually just builds a wall around the implant, a fibrous capsule to seal it off. For something like a sensor, that can be a real problem.
Next, bureaucracy. The regulations in India, handled by the CSDSCO, are pretty complex. They're based on risk, which makes sense. But for a startup with a brand new, innovative material, well, if it doesn't fit into a pre-existing box, you're looking at delays. Plus, the cost and time for clinical trials, especially for high-risk devices, can be a killer for small companies. Even some rules, like the one about a maximum 5-year shelf life, just don't make sense for super durable materials.
Okay, exam trap number 1. Please do not use biodegradable and compostable interchangeably. They are not the same thing. That bioplastic, PLA, it's compostable. That means it needs an industrial composting facility to break down properly. It will not just disappear in a landfill or the ocean. And the crucial point for your analysis is that India, well, we don't have many of those industrial facilities. So precision in your answer is key.
And here's exam trap number 2. It's a common mistake to think all implants are supposed to bond with the body. They aren't. Remember what we said about bioinert materials like titanium? Their whole purpose is to be ignored by the body. They're designed for structural support, not for bonding. It's the bioactive materials that do the bonding. Make sure you don't mix up these two very different approaches.
All right, let's bring it all home in Section 6. The best mains answers always end with a solid way forward. So let's engineer the future. What does a realistic roadmap look like?
Here are 3 concrete ideas you can write about. 1. Regulatory sandboxes. These are basically safe spaces for startups to test their new tech with more flexible rules. It could really speed things up. 2. PLA schemes. Why not extend them to bioplastics to help bring the cost down compared to regular plastic? And 3. We need strong BIS standards for labeling. This would stop companies from greenwashing and tell consumers exactly what they're buying. Okay, Let's put this into practice. Picture this. You get a GS3 question about how policy can spur private investment. Boom. You've got the perfect case study, that Balrampur Cheney Mills plant. You can explain exactly how policies like BioE3 send a clear signal to the market, giving a private company the confidence to invest 2,000 crores in a cutting-edge green tech sector. It's a perfect example.
So to wrap it all up, 2026 really is shaping up to be a watershed year. It's the moment India makes a decisive move from being a net importer to becoming a global player in a $300 billion bioeconomy. Ultimately, this is all about engineering a future that's greener, more self-reliant, and fundamentally more secure for all of us.
So, I'll leave you with this question to chew on. Think of it as homework. Analyze the strategic significance of the BioE3 policy in fostering a circular bioeconomy, but make sure you discuss both the biological and the regulatory hurdles. Try to frame it in about 250 words. It's the best way to make sure all this information really sticks.
And hey, to make your revision easier, we've put together some high-yield notes and a really clean mind map of everything we talked about. The link for that is right down in the description. Go check it out. Thanks for your time.